Hello, my name's Ed Poole. I'm a member of the Green Party, and today I'm interviewing Marina Lademacher, who is standing to be a local council candidate in Brighton and Hove Queen's Park ward by-elections. Hi, Marina.
Hey Ed.
So, Marina, can you tell us a bit about yourself and why you're running?
So I am Marina. I'm a teacher for many years in the city. I've also been a mentor with students across different schools. My background, though, I guess, is more research. For years, I wanted to be an academic. Then, actually, before that, I wanted to be a journalist, but endlessly moving between precarious dreams. And then I've worked in schools in Brighton, in Bognor, in London. And the reason why I wanted to really stand, besides from just my kind of uh, appetite for just fighting labor a bit, I guess, on the council, is that basically I think like we've just seen succession after succession of council administrations and governments where it just gets worse. Like things just get. Can I swear on this, by the way?
Yeah, it's up
Can I
to you.
swear? Yeah, okay, great. It just gets more and more. It just gets terrible. Like nothing ever seems really to get better, and I think like crisis doesn't even do it justice now. Like how bad things are. It's and I'm running out of ways to even like describe how bad it is. So I guess I wanted to stand because having kind of come from like a much more actually like anarchist tradition of kind of fuck the system, like there's no point getting involved. I think there is actually something important about like trying to get involved in where like decisions are made. So whereas maybe like 5 years ago I would have been like absolutely no point. Let's just kind of agitate from outside. I was very much in that wing of just like let's agitate from the outside, just full on kind of campaigns. Now I think actually it is important for us to like try and kick Labour out. And as Zach said, we're not just here to challenge them; we're here to replace them. And I think that's part of it now.
There aren't due to be local elections in Brighton at the moment, so what's brought this by-election about?
Yeah, no, there aren't due to be local elections. Why this by-election is happening is because another Labour councillor has resigned. It's the second in 2 years in Queen's Park alone, and it's the sixth by-election since 2023 caused by a Labour councillor resigning. So each one cost the council £30,000. So this by-election is happening because Tristram, the existing Labour councillor, and they've resigned for various reasons, but he's resigned, leaving a vacancy. So this by-election kind of came about.
Why should people vote for the Green Party?
Yeah, I think people should vote for the Green Party on a kind of main, like in a nutshell, because only the Greens actually point at the causes of the problems, which are economic. It's the oligarchic system that we live in, very feudal, I think, of corporations and of billionaires who basically run roughshod over our world and gut out our communities and are destroying our planet. So I think on the kind of like analysis level, only the Greens have it. I guess also why they should vote Green over Labour. And I'm quoting Ash Sarkar here. We know what happens when you keep voting Labour, right? Like it just nothing ever gets better. In fact, it gets worse. So um, I think for that alone, like Greens on the left, if we're really serious about tackling any of the problems that are facing us, it's only the Greens that have the answer, and I think they always have had the answers, but it's now just like the comms is just kind of cutting through. I was a former, Corbyn supporter, Labour member, like back in the years, but just seeing the way that Starmer so shamefully pivoted to the right and now just washing the dirty laundry of dictators around the world and our complicity in genocide is disgusting, and I don't know how people who still support that can sleep at night.
One of the main issues for local councils is housing, particularly in places like Brighton. What do you think the local council can do?
I think there's a lot they can do actually, and I think like it's often passing the buck to say we can't do anything. One example of passing the buck is there are these corporate landlords who haven't really had like much of the heat on them for a long time. We go after private landlords rightfully, but there are also corporate landlords who are basically running the most slum level living in the city you can imagine. Rats, bed bugs, people who are fleeing the most horrendous abuse, who move into temporary accommodation sites. They're asked to pay 50 quid deposit. When they don't have that, they're then taunted and asked, oh, you don't have 50 quid to your name. The stories I'm hearing are just absolutely shocking, let alone like it's a very kind of sensory overload when you see literally, kids playing amidst rats and black mold and the bed bugs and people sleeping on the floor because mattresses aren't getting replaced. What's a new mattress? Like 70, 80 quid. But there is stuff we can do. So for instance, on that, bringing those contracts in-house actually would cost a lot less in the long run. So you have some of these companies, one that I have a particular issue with, Barron Homes, because of the way they are also not only running those sites, but buying up under a different company's name, Moreton Investments, various bits of the city. It's wasting huge amounts of money the council gives to them. Bring those contracts in house, like what happened elsewhere in the city. Gladstone Court turned into Manor House. It's now decent-ish temporary accommodation. So moving those contracts in house. On housing as well, we need more council housing. We're losing stock way faster than we're building it. In Queen's Park, there's a site, Freshfield. That is a site that we have to keep in public hands for truly affordable housing. I think it's often when we say affordable housing, we need to add truly affordable housing. And that should just clearly not be sold to developers. It should not be given off to the highest bidder. I think that's the main thing. It's in this city alone. It's been yes to developers and no to community. And that needs to switch. It needs to be yes to community and no to developers. Also on housing, like this is kind of beyond the council's remit specifically, but East Sussex Pensions is still investing in Shell. You could be investing in council housing, right? Instead of us still investing our pensions in dirty fossil fuels. Not that some of us might not be lucky enough to even get pensions. So mainly it's just about actually like also in the ward in Queen's Park, just horrific disrepair, substandard, inhumane levels of housing. I'm running out of words to even like describe how appalling it is. So like on day one, if I'm elected, just doing some of those like basic repairs for people who literally think that no one is there to give one shit about them or do anything. Like and they're so unspoken, they're so invisible that they need someone shouting out for them the loudest. So it's about basic repairs finally getting done in the city. Obviously like we're up against it economically, we'll get onto that later, but there is stuff we can do locally. I think it's just about being very clear on where our priorities are, and we need more council housing and to go after these corporate landlords.
What do you think Green Party councillors in Brighton can learn from Brighton councils in the past?
I think first and foremost is we need to set the narrative. Like we allowed Labour, and we have allowed Labour to set the narrative of previous Green administrations. And let's remember, Greens have never actually had control of Brighton City Council. Like I'm reminding people every day on the door, Greens have never had control of the council. We ended up in a situation in the last minority administration where Greens just happened to be the largest party. There was no overall control. But what happened was that instead of shouting out about what we wanted to do, we ended up on the back foot slightly by letting Labour set the narrative and also going into 2023 talking about what we had done as opposed to what we want to do. And I think it's also lessons to learn nationally. Like if we want to kind of gain power nationally and across different councils, we need to keep setting the narrative and know that we're not always going to be we're not always going to have a majority, but we might end up being the largest party. How do we counter that? And I think the lessons we've learned as well is just to be bolder and to not be afraid of just really holding Labour's feet to the fire, as well as like being very clear on the truth. For instance, I360 comes up again and again. That was a Labour policy initially. It was a lot of these decisions that Greens get blamed for. They were signed by all parties at the time. In I360, it was Labour in charge of planning, and I think that's part of it. Bin's another one. This was a contract that was signed by Labour in 2003, extended by the Tories. So Greens are often unfairly getting blamed for decisions that weren't even us. So I think that's part of that, resetting the narrative and just pushing harder against their lines.
Local council funding's been cut by central government, Conservative central government, and the coalition for years now. What can local councils do to kind of fight back and counter the effects of shrinking finances?
Yeah, I mean it's tricky. Like unlike other administrations, Greens when they were in power, they didn't have money that other administrations did have. But I think still there are ways we can counter it. Like as I mentioned about East Sussex pension funds. So, for instance, on housing, we could be investing some of the East Sussex pension in council housing. But also, I think there are massive cost-cutting measures we can make. For instance, I mentioned about the contracts with companies like Brighton and Hove. They get huge amounts of money to run really shoddy services. In the long run, that would really reduce costs if we actually brought that in-house. and these costs always end up building up. If you have like, I went to someone's flat recently, and they had like a tap that's just been dripping and dripping. The council say, oh, it's not urgent. We have other, higher costs we need to prioritize at the moment. And my answer to that would be like, okay, at the moment that seems like not a high cost. The tap is dripping on for an hour, but that might mean that the kid there isn't sleeping well, they don't concentrate, they end up, let's say like getting excluded just because like it could have all stemmed back from that one tap that isn't fixed. So everything ends up costing in the long run way more the things we don't fix initially. So that's my answer to the idea that like we need to, not prioritize the things that don't seem like a big cost now, because they will end up being a long cost now. Same in mental health. Mold, I think, and housing disrepair ends up costing the NHS, at least in 2022, 1.4 billion a year. So there are massive costs across the city, but I think part of how we challenge that in locally is just better policies, and Greens are on that. So, for instance, a housing register where we can see all the holiday lets in the city. I asked an existing councillor, Labour, how many holiday lets are there in the city? Anywhere from between 2,000 to 6,000. Why is there that huge range? Because there is no public register where we can see how many holiday lets there are. Once we have that, we can be applying double, triple council tax, like Rachel Millwood did in Wealdon, double council tax, but also in Wales they've done triple council tax on Airbnbs. So there are ways we can free up money, but it's about how we go after different bits that, for instance, have had absolutely no pressure on them for a long time. These are landlords having lucrative businesses with hen do's and stag do's. They're paying no council tax. It's outrageous.
My stag do was in Brighton, but we stayed in a hostel thing. Anyway.
Oh yeah, nice.
This is like made of metal. The whole thing was like made of metal. Anyway, it's grim. But the Olympics were on. Mo Salah won. It was good. It's a good weekend.
Oh wow, fun.
I was dressed as Pink Panther. I could put a picture of that up. I won't.
Oh, I want to see it. Cool. but
What other issues are important locally?
yeah, I mean, on a kind of, this is going to zoom out. Like, I actually wasn't expecting to kind of think about this at all this morning, but loneliness is something that has been kind of coming up more and more on the door. This is one of the highest single occupancy wards in the city, Queen's Park, and often like people just want to say that it's nice to talk to someone, and so I think like the levels of like loneliness I'm seeing in the ward made me think that actually like what we need to think about more long term as Greens is also pushing some of the policies we have nationally about like citizens assemblies and more public assemblies, but maybe implementing that locally, like opportunities for residents to come together and to realize like our struggles are shared, that we're all experiencing different things, but that like we can find like your t-shirt, solidarity across our struggles. So that's something that I'm keen locally and in the city to kind of push for, much more like open town hall style meetings. I think other issues apart from housing is just the streets are just disgusting. Like in Brighton, we're not known for actually like having a very kind of clean green city. Like people come and visit and they're like, why does it look so gross everywhere? In Queen's Park, like it's awful actually. Like you have some streets where the bins and seagulls will just like have all the rubbish just piling out over. I've been organising litter picks for months across the board, just like cleaning it up. Fly tipping's a massive state. So I think also just like fighting for the existing green spaces we have to be better. Queen's Park, even little things that has absolutely no water fountain for all the runners and the families and the dog walkers. Like it's how come there's no water fountain in the whole park? Little things like that. Rent controls across it. So yeah, so I'm going back to housing now, my big passion, but and just opposing some of the like big style developers who just run roughshod over our city, the kind of community colonizers. It could be Brighton College. Land grab doesn't even do it justice with Brighton College because they're just fully they are just basically like community colonizers. And with the genocide in Gaza, there's this weird double reality going on where we're like going about our normal life day by day, but meanwhile there's a genocide going on, and we're complicit in it as a country. And I think being much tougher, whether it's standing by trans rights, disabled rights, calling out all these issues of justice, like it's not getting shouted out enough, and it is a local issue. I had someone at the door recently have a go being like, this is not a local issue, and it is a local issue. We're all affected by it. It's not just people in our communities, but it's we are sending weapons over there. I was at L3 Harris a few weeks ago, discussing arms factory, and this is very much a Brighton issue, and we have to tap into our humanity sometimes to appeal to these people, who are just saying, oh, what are you doing? I think it is there is something very human about not wanting to just be silent in the face of what's going on, let alone how complicit we are as a nation.
A lot of, as you kind of alluded to earlier, a lot of these pension funds that are controlled by local councils are invested in arms industry and things that are, involved in
Mm,
genocide in Palestine as well. So I think these are local issues, like you say. Um,
yeah.
my t-shirt's from a organization called Praxis for Migrants and Refugees, which does a lot of work with refugees and stuff. So that's just a plug for them. What do you love about Brighton?
Can I just actually start that as well? Like saying what I don't love about Brighton is just the rampant inequality. I think just to kind of go into what I love about it. What I love about it is the opposite of what I don't love. So what I hate is this insane levels of inequality that I see as like a kind of housing for me is like a microcosm of all the inequalities going on at the moment, from education to health. And what I hate is this massive glaring gap between the 99%, those of us who are just struggling, the like let's say the rentier class, and then the 1% in this city, the corporate barons, the landlords, like my own landlord who has like 20 properties, those of us who are basically just getting a free ride, one rule for them, the rest for everyone else, for the 99%. What I love about this city though is like actually the kind of flip side of that there is just a great sense of genuine community, and like you could feel pretty much like you could talk to absolutely anyone here and have a good conversation. Like it's one of those few places that I've ever lived where like I can basically just chat to anyone whatever time of day and end up like making a friend. I love that. I love how easy it is to make friends here, to just connect with people, and it's a place of like-minded progressives in a way, and like that has been something I've been, I guess, not surprised by because we know the right are like on the rise, but just the rhetoric in the ward to do with migrants. And yeah, I think it's something that we need to push back on much stronger as Greens. And Zach is doing that, but like taking that right wing racist rhetoric head on. Yeah, people are right to be angry that money is leaving our communities, leaving our countries, but it's because rich people are buying up our assets, and taking the money out of the country. So I think, yeah, taking that kind of rhetoric head on, so that we preserve Brighton as a city of like of people who are just who are kind, who care about community, who we're not here to like fight with each other. We're not here to compete. It's not super individualistic like in London. Like it's not this kind of briefcase carrying city. If people are in a suit, they're probably either going to the Labour Party conference or they're going to court. Like it's a very kind of relaxed place, and that's why it's why we love it. And part of it as well is just my own love of being here. It's like also just stems into kind of wanting to make it better, but then mixed in with like an anger that while there are some of us who do have a relatively fantastic like experience of the city, there are those who every minute of their day they're reminded of their suffering at the hands of negligence, basically. And I think that's it. It's like we're now seeing like decades and decades of underfunding and negligence, and organizations, corporations, they've got away with it for so long because they have. No one's actually gone after them. And I think just being much, much stronger and just naming the enemy in Brighton, that will help a lot, because at the moment people don't even know about some of these companies that are basically just buying up, and they have different names, different companies that they use on Companies House. If you follow the money on the trails, it's just it's we need to stop it now before our city becomes unrecognizable.
How can people get involved in your campaign?
Well, I mean, the main way to get involved would be come door knocking every day, literally every single day. Since this by-election was announced, I've been out door knocking on the doors. It's going to be close because Labour won the last two in this ward, but I think we can do it. How people can get involved? Number one, like message me on Twitter, message me on any way you can find me. I'll add you to this. We've got a very lively, fun WhatsApp group. Every day we meet. We door knock, we leaflet. We're just basically like, it's a very kind of, it's a guerrilla style campaign on the ground. And you know, it's looking hopeful. Like people are fed up of Labour. Like people are now sick of it. They're seeing through their lies. And you know, great news for them. They don't have to vote Labour. They can vote Green. So aside from that, like if you can't make it down to upcoming days, we have Colin Denny coming this Sunday. We've had Caroline Lucas, we've had Sean on the campaign trail, Sean Berry, our amazing MP in Brighton Pavilion. Otherwise, just spread the awareness on Twitter. There's a campaign going on. There's a by-election in Brighton, and we need a socialist on the council. We don't need a blue Labour councillor. He's not just blue Labour. Like if I get a Labour member on the door or a Labour voter, sometimes I'll say, why do you still put your trust in Labour? But more often now, I'm like, I don't know what kind of Labour you are, but Simon Charlton, the Labour candidate, he's very right wing, and not just that, but we found like a lot of like horrific transphobic and racist tweets he's been liking in the past. So just the basic lack of due diligence on their candidate is horrific. And luckily, we've got great links locally with left groups. I'm the only kind of like anti-austerity, anti-war candidate. So as well as having a socialist on the council, if you want someone who's going to be absolutely no fudging on questions of justice, definitely get involved. And we every single help between now and the 18th of September, it's just under 2 weeks, makes all the difference. Because it's at that point now where like every single conversation really matters. There's a huge amount of undecided voters. So it's going to be really close, but like the rewards are great if we can do it. So please, just message on Twitter, or anyone from Brighton and Hove Green Party can add you to this our campaign WhatsApp. And it'd be great to see hopefully anyone on the knocking campaign trail. My fists are getting tired from all the knocking I'm doing.